Mike, welcome, GM.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for being here.
I was telling these guys, this is the hottest room in the entire
It's
city.
the hottest room in the entire city, and we've been here.
I feel so bad for you, but I couldn't tell. I was watching it earlier. You look great. You're keeping your composure.
All right.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, when I'm chatting, should I be looking at you?
So you can
Or do I look at all these wonderful folks who are...
and it's less about making sure we're on the right camera. Awesome. You guys hanging out, chatting about Solana and how
thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So what's the energy like out there? Obviously, we've been in here. We heard announcements go that vibrated the very glass of this booth. So what are we actually missing?
Yeah, so I think what's beautiful about Solana conferences and Accelerate was similar in New York is the organization really focuses on making sure that it's product centric, it's builder centric, and or it's folks who are using the chain. So that could be institutions, folks like Jeremy at Circle, and so basically everything is structured to get as much information across as possible in a really narrow part of time. Like I gave a keynote and I had 5 minutes. That's great. I could talk for an hour. I've probably already talked for 5 minutes about nothing. But what that does is it just forces energy from the speaker, from the crowd, and then energy, and then it condenses information. The amount of, what is it, like 100 people a day on stage? There's nothing else in crypto and frankly in finance like this. So. And it's gotten better every year with more attendees. I think they sold 7,000 tickets, sort of taken over the city. And back to the original question. So the energy is so palpable. It's completely different than, what you would think if you're just kind of looking at the choppy markets or you're sitting in Telegram groups with your friends and, everybody's tokens are kind of like choppy and hey, Solana hit 250. Not too many months ago, and I don't know, it's at 140 or so today. But basically everybody here is taking a really long-term builder horizon, right? And that's across every vertical. Maker was just in here, I think, right? There's Sky, pardon me. And it's just incredible. So much more capital coming on chain on Solana, and of course on other chains. Kalshi doing things on chain, Phantom, integrating so many more things into sort of their core distribution wallet and user group. And everybody is doing things that have many year horizons. So what's beautiful is we're making this transition. So 6man Ventures has made this bet for a long time. We invest almost exclusively at the app layer, that real businesses are going to be built on chain, and they should be, and they need to be for all the reasons. I don't need to give you the whole 24/7, 365 low fee composability. You guys know it, transparency, blah, 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 blah. That's happening across many different segments, from payments to DeFi, to DePIN, to fun stuff, speculation, gambling, gaming. But it's really happening, okay? Where we are though, so we're at this inflection point. We're at sort of, I would say, 3 years of rebirth from the bottom of 2022. It's almost exactly 3 years later. I remember being at Breakpoint and getting the news as I was hopping on my plane back from Portugal that FTX was going down. We're past that now. And it's a lot of the same core people who are driving us forward, who just kept building, squads we invested in before that. And now they're a Leviathan with 4 different massive product lines and just growing so quickly. Helios, was born out of that. Another portfolio company, Jito, continues to reinvent themselves. So it's just exciting. So you have those core folks. Now you have, as I said before, all these new businesses coming on to Solana, like Kalshi. And it's just really exciting, like these asset issuers, the Galaxy and others are working with. And again, they have that long-term build horizon. Robinhood doesn't build products for 6 months or a year. They build them for 5. Venmo, PayPal with PYUSD. They are building for a decade. I worked at Venmo 15 years ago. Like they are really here for the long run, all of these businesses. So, now it's the real world. And it's going to be a different group. It's going to, I guess we're going to be in London next year, right? And it's going to be, I think, much more institutional focused, and that's a good thing. So what happens is for the builders, it's going to become much more competitive. You're going to get some of the best founders in the world competing with you. Stripe, Tempo. That's fun. I've talked to so many of our portfolio companies, people we may invest in. They're like, bring it on. We believe we can do better. You're getting folks who are optimistic because they haven't weathered 3-4 cycles and aren't burnt out. So it's great. Just people with fresh eyes, fresh perspective. And, I would say that there's a culture that I've seen, and I've really appreciated from Toli and from Raj and from Lily, of just optimism. Anybody's welcome here, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been fun seeing assets, like XRP and BTC and, Mert's favorite ZEC, coming onto Solana. And, ultimately, I think Solana's done a great job now of like really focusing on a place where sort of all finance can happen on chain. So anyway, I've been talking for 10 minutes, but I'm just, I'm jazzed. You can tell.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing. It's the favorite thing that I go to every year, where I see people I love with high energy, with optimism, and we're gonna be right, and we continue to be right. And so it's just, if you actually sat down and you were a cynic and you said Solana scammy, fraud, this, that, the other thing, crime it, all the meme stuff, you better take the time to watch 5-6 hours of videos. And if you really can say that with a straight face afterwards, I think you're lying to yourself.
Anyone who came in and wanting to hate on Solana, I think, would leave with this bullish optimism that we've all been injected with.
Yeah.
Something that you mentioned there was all about these new apps coming in, and the big focus of the event as well has been revenue. And for me, it's absolutely ridiculous that on crypto Twitter we're calling it the revenue meta, as if we're just actually becoming a real industry.
Right. So I'm proud of the founders that we've backed, of Solana itself, for prioritizing a real business, prioritizing revenue, and frankly for basically designing everything from the lowest level block space, priority fees, how to land transactions, such that folks at every layer of the stack can generate revenue, right? From Jito, from validators, but all the way through to the app layer itself. So making the chain so performant that you can run really high velocity businesses, like Pump does. And then not frown. I mean, I think Pump's gotten some shit from a lot of folks for being quote unquote extractive. I think that's overdone, and it's quieted itself down as people realize, wait, it's actually a good thing that on top of this chain, where the base pair is Solana in every trade that's done on Pump, so it's useful and it's using Sol as money. And basically are just printing, they're still doing the 1.2 million yesterday, the day before, even though, the trenches are supposedly dead. And what's cool is I've seen the chatter sort of die off on, it's extractive to generate revenue. No, it's something to be proud of.
And it elevates the ceiling of what anybody else
can do. You don't want just, people coming out with $1-2 billion FTV chains and, protocols that have no revenue. And I think so. Seeing the success of of Pump has really helped a lot of other teams in the Solana ecosystem change their tokenomics now. Hey, are buybacks a perfect mechanism? Absolutely not. We can debate whether it's the most efficient way to drive value back to token holders, but unfortunately, given the regulatory landscape in the U.S., you can't just send money back to a token holder today. You'd be a security. So, I actually think so. So you use the methods that are available to you today, and then over time, can modify them. And you've seen a lot of teams experimenting and being rewarded for it. And what I really like about Solana is the revenue occurs on chain. I know they show Tether and Circle revenue on DeFi Llama, but it's not on-chain revenue. It's all earned off-chain. Solana is just a beautiful place where both app developers can make money, but also folks holding the underlying tokens can as well.
There was also a chart that they showed, like on the first day, that showed like businesses that crossed $100 million. I mean, Pump,
I stole it for frictionless and put it back up in the speech. It was a great one.
Quickest
Good job, Legend.
Quickest in history, right? So the internet capital markets theory, like in practice.
They're showing beautiful.
Everything that you're talking about.
It was like Axiom, Pump, Jupiter, and there were a couple others that I'm sure I'm forgetting.
And it's just fantastic. So everything that you're talking about is like, hey, this is actually happening on Solana right now, and it's just the beginning of it.
It's just the beginning. You're going to see it as Kalshi moves more of what they're doing on chain. It's going to explode. I think when we look at these charts 3 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if there's like a transition phase. But what's interesting is I also think you're going to see more people sort of be pleased, because, and here's what I'd say, the things that are going to get traded are going to start to be quote unquote serious assets. So you're going to be able to please the folks who like to have fun and do a little bit of degen stuff. But as all these RWAs come on chain, as I can trade Tesla stock, as I can trade maybe private company stocks on chain, there's going to be trading fees from that. So the apps are going to be generating revenue. There's issuance fees. There's just so many ways that you're going to be able to make money at the app layer in Solana moving forward.
And I think part of that app layer, part of what's been so successful, and Pump is a great example of this, is this willingness to experiment and to try new things. We talked about the making $1 million a day in revenue in the midst of the meme coin bear market. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're just continuing to build on that and they continue to build it. And if they try an idea, maybe the traders reject it, maybe they don't like it, they say fine, they brush it off, they get back in the booth and they fire out a new idea. That's
why I like them. And again, we'll continue with this case study. They're building for multiple cycles. They believe that they have a wedge, like Binance had a wedge with ICOs and the ICO launchpad in 2018. That meme coins are sort of that new asset, and they've done AI coins, some utility tokens. They're going to be doing more of those. They have some announcements coming on that front, so it's exciting for them. They don't view themselves as a meme coin launchpad, but as a token and capital formation protocol, and it's working. To your point, they've tried different things, creator capital markets. I think those were a little ahead of their time, just figuring out the mechanics of how to make sure that, for example, if you guys had a token that it, didn't just like spike only when you're, you're streaming. And there are a lot of things that they're going to do there in the coming years, but they don't rush to do it, like to change and modify every third day. That's where you confuse your customers. They're building on a very long-term horizon, and like they want to rival the TikToks and the others of the world. TikTok with money.
They basically set off like a whole new meta on Solana of meme coins, right? Solana's been called the meme coin chain by everyone for a long time, and it's because of the success of them. And it's like no matter how much other protocols or Jesse from Base want to mimic that, they just haven't had the success of it. It's actually like
because it's authentic. It's not like, and I think Jesse is authentic, but he's also like, he's not like native. It just doesn't resonate with other people the same way. Like it resonates with him. But what's cool, so one nuance I think to what you're saying, what's so interesting is that I think I was reading that meme coins are only about 5%, maybe 6% of trading volume right now.
There was a day where it dropped. There was a day where it dropped to 5%, which is the lowest since October 2023.
But still, Solana was the most used chain that day. It's like so. It's, and I think Vib, marketing at Solana, talked about this. He's a founder. We backed a Drip, fantastic guy. It's a little feisty like I do on X, but I think to the benefit of Solana in the long run. But it's just been really, really, really good to see, basically how we are getting more and more high quality assets that meet a different segment of person while still retaining the ability for the folks who just want to have a great time, want to punt a little bit, to do that.
And it seems like you do that, right? So I
do that personally.
When I think about like what I'm a longtime follower, like I feel like you give a bunch of alpha out on Twitter, and I've learned a bunch from
some good, some bad.
Some good, some bad.
Sometimes I get dunked on,
like everyone. But the way that goes, we get to learn a lot from what you're doing. You're out there playing with it. You're buying NFTs. You're checking out the coins, and so you have the perspective of a user, like what's a user going to do when they're on there? What are they going to think?
So exactly.
You get the insight from that. Where I don't think that's a common thing.
So it's not, and it was part of what I talked about in the 6 a.m. Mentors. They asked me to do a product keynote, and I was like, well, what's my product? It's give people money. But in order to understand where the money should be deployed, you have to use the protocol. So we have a team. I don't use every protocol. I'm not like a deep exotic, DeFi user. But one of my partners is. I don't want to like dox his portfolio, but like point is we use the products so that we understand them and can have a perspective and a point of view. And by the way, if we don't, we'll hire folks who have the expertise that we think we need in areas where things are headed. More than that, we've also started companies ourselves. We know how to build them. Moving forward, VC is not, it's not today in crypto. It's an active practice, right? Like when we make an investment, the firms, the companies, the protocols, the projects we invest in, they want us either directly or through some of our strategic partners to be deploying capital into their protocols, you know, and using them. And we have to believe that we'll do that. We won't invest in one if we don't feel comfortable, you know, putting, you know, 1, 5, 10 or more, you know, $1 million to work either ourselves or through partners, because if I'm not willing to, who is?
Yeah. Yeah. And so a lot of these apps you've mentioned that your backs, you know, Pump, obviously, Jito, people have said 6 man is on a generational run, you know. So for you, what is the secret sauce? What is the thing that separates the teams that make it and the teams that don't make it?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the biggest don't make it is 2 things. It's not having like strong conviction to stay really, really committed, like a strong, unique point of view on why the market that they're attacking is the right one, why it's going to be valuable, and why they're the right person for it. We always try and tease that out sort of pre-investment, but sometimes it's hard, or they'll sort of fake it and imply to you that they are. And then, you see them pivot 6-9 months later. And
the joke is often that actually VCs are exit liquidity for founding teams. Right?
In some cases, that's the case. So that's one. 2 is we really like people who are crypto native. It's just, I know you can come from other industries, but usually the people who are like, I think a blockchain would be good for this, like the failure rate's much higher than it has been in our portfolio. And then the people who have stuck through the hardest cycle. So our best cohort of performers were investments that we did in 2021, 2023, and 2024, which were kind of some of the harder times where you were like coming out of, and then 2022 was so euphoric. And then honestly, this year we invested fairly slowly because there have been a lot of Me Too. We like authentic ideas. There's very few authentic ideas. So what we're deeply looking for is founders, again, who might bring domain expertise, somebody who understands, data center economics so much and understands why, for example, specific types of GPUs or other assets might, be great backing for a yield coin. But what really brings deep authenticity has actually, done things on chain in addition to that domain expertise. So you're looking for those unicorns. There's very few of them. So what I would say is what we've gotten better as is we've slowed down our pace to make sure that we found that founder persona that I've talked about, some level of like domain expertise, deep belief, crypto native, and just tells you it's like I'm doing this, doesn't mention I'm trying to launch a token within 1 year. An example would be Football.fun.
I've got a few Football.fun.
It's so fun and it's working well, and the guy ran, I think, Wolves DAO, which was like a soccer DAO. He was a big SoRare player. Like, he cared about this. He's like, I can make this game better. And it just exudes. Those are the people you dream of. Now, it's hard, again, like I said, to deploy. There's just not that many of those people out there. But I think you're going to see more and more in the coming years. But what we avoid are, right now, prediction markets, hot thing. Seeing teams that we got pitched 2 years ago on something else who are now, doing prediction markets, aggregation, or terminal business. Like, those are the types of things I don't get excited about. I want somebody who's, hey, maybe was writing papers about prediction markets, when they were in uni, and now is actually putting that into practice. Oh, and by the way, like, they've also used them and are passionate about the product.
So you're not like investing in like, hey, this is the hot meta right now. Prediction markets, like, they're massive right now. You turn on the news and you see a prediction market, right? So you're not looking at that. You're looking at what's going to be the next thing, or what are people building that could be the next big thing.
That's generally what we're looking for. Exactly. And so, I don't know that there's going to be, many net new standalone generic prediction markets created, like if you just invested today. But 7 months ago, we invested in a company called Worm. Literally behind us in the next half hour, they're going to announce their a big product release. But it was a founder who's been working on the concept for a couple of years. It brings some new primitives, so AI created markets, AI created market resolution, and then adding leverage positions for more capital efficiency in prediction markets. So just had a unique point of view on some things that he believed could be either additive or even better than what exists in the market today, but not, like the next prediction market for fashion or something. It's just like, you know, you're going to need the liquidity from the big markets to make that work, right?
Think of it as like there's no moat on that. You know, you can spend years building out the fashion prediction market, and then Kalshi puts
That's exactly
feature
it.
and they
They
go,
have such a liquidity advantage.
this is our fashion category. And
Yeah.
like, you're gone. You're out the door.
Yeah, so we are excited. Same thing's happening in stablecoins. Like if I hear the word stablecoin orchestration one more time in the next 3 days, like honestly, I might, might head home.
That sounds good. So you kind of slowed down a little bit in 2025.
The pace.
How do you categorize like 2025 as a year for Solana? It's an interesting year.
Right? It is. So it's been a transition year, and I think people right now are painting it as a, what I would say is like I've seen a lot of these like nihilism one and the casino, and I'm cynical and I'm this and I'm that. And honestly, it was the same people who I was having a blast. They were having a blast with that, 6-9 months ago. So it's total revisionist history. It was as fun as like the NFT craze, at the peak. It's, things can be a little bit different now. So anyway, point is, I think Solana has done great so far this cycle. If the cycle's over, which I don't generally, think is the case, I think that where we're at is cycles will be more muted. I could be dead wrong. I hope I'm not. I've seen Chris Bernitzky's probably a little more bearish, and but basically, I think it's been a wonderful transition year where the overall value of assets has dropped significantly, not just at Solana. I think we've lost $1 billion worth of total crypto market cap, since the October high. But a lot of that is healthy. It's, infrastructure, crappy L1s, some apps that were wildly overvalued. And I think we'll hit all-time highs in market cap most likely next year again. And then we'll be much, much higher, 10 trillion, a few years down the road. But I think a lot of that value will be in Bitcoin. I do think Ethereum. I think Solana, and not too many other like infrastructure or money, or L1s. I think it's going to be at the app layer. And it's not gonna be like tokenized, like not just like Tether and USDC, but other like really interesting, risk assets, yield coins, like I said. And then protocols like, Jupiter, I don't want to name any of our portcos that don't have tokens yet and get in trouble, but some will, that have, again, real business models and real revenues. But that transition is painful. You have to write down the trash before, sort of rising from the ashes. And this happened in, from 2022 into 23 and 24. You saw some of that stuff, and then some of it got too overvalued and corrected. But Solana has just some incredible primitives that I believe, there's going to be great opportunities. Because I'm an SEC registered investment advisor, I can't name specific
There's
ones.
No financial advice.
It kills me not to be able to do, but like, there's going to be some great opportunities, both of existing tokens and then a lot of new ones. Like we encourage Football.fun to do their public sale on Kraken and Legion at a 60 million FTV, so that, which is higher than where we invested, but not crazily so, such that people can, retail can participate and make a lot of money if they execute the business well and get credit for that in the token.
Yeah, and
I didn't give financial advice, as you just saw. I said if.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned like how bullish you are earlier and those reasons why, and like we've been feeling that in this booth.
Yeah,
every person we talk to is building long term. They're planning on tokenizing. We brought Galaxy in. Thomas from there, head of tokenization. He's like, we have $5 trillion that we're looking to tokenize.
Yeah,
and I asked him, I was like, so what percentage of that are you really going to tokenize? All of it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not short.
And I worked at Paxos for a bit, and same thing. They're seeing so many partners coming in and telling them that, and actually starting to do it. So it's been exciting. The numbers are real. They're massive. And then even when many of these traditional assets are issued on chain, it's going to benefit DeFi because you're going to have more collateral on chain. You're going to have more real assets. People are going to be opening their wallets more often and managing them. Have a reason to keep their money in USDT, USDC, PYUSD, and the crypto native coins because there's a bunch of different things to do. That's the one thing that I think we're also looking for as investors is, hey, how do we make on-chain things easier to do, apps easier to use? So I think the onboarding stuff, like things like Privy, where you can use your email, are better. I think we're gonna have to do more things with multi-sig so people feel, more comfortable with self-custody. But we're definitely moving in the right direction.
I 100% are moving in the right direction. We have like a Solflare hardware wallet right there. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I like
it's
it.
basically like a
I like the look.
It's a basic credit
I
card.
wouldn't. I'd just be nervous about. Oh, it's okay. So it's smaller inside.
It's tiny inside. It's I think the stickers on it right now, but if you pull it out, it's basically a credit card, and
That's very cool.
Your funds on your phone like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I'm curious. The message we got was that you announced that you are focused on Solana. That's
I
a
would
bit
say
vague.
half of what we do is on Solana.
Right,
And then
because I imagine that all of a sudden all these builders on these other chains go, the sixth man is out.
No, and I think we're like Multicoin in many ways, where we'll suggest to somebody who's generically deciding where to build, hey, we think Solana is a great place. So it's like we're generic in how we we're opinionated, but not like forceful. But we'll say, hey, I think Solana or maybe Base, will work. Maybe Hyperliquid if it's a purely financial thing might work. But there's only like a handful of ecosystems, maybe even like Avalanche, depending on if it's a corporate thing.
Yeah.
There's not that many places that I would feel comfortable telling a builder to build.
Ultimately, Solana is at this point in time, it's the best place to build apps, and if you're kind of targeting that app layer,
that's
really no way better.
Yeah, it's unequivocal that's the case. Yep.
Yeah. So part of that abstraction, you mentioned making it easy. Privy's doing really good work for this. Do you think that we still continue to go in this line of full crypto abstraction? And, we go like the Reddit route where they said these aren't NFTs, they're avatars. Is it?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think the young kids are comfortable holding crypto and it's fun. And you can kind of see it in the like sort of schizo fun nature of the Pump app.
Yeah.
No, so I think you're going to have both. You're going to have a set of audience, my parents, maybe even my friends, I'm in my 40s who want to hold an ETF, as we talked about, or want to hold crypto in a E-Trade wallet or something. But I definitely think that you're going to have pure crypto wallets on chain, moving money, and I think it's going to be much easier. So you could confidently say that it's the worst it'll ever be today, right?
Yeah.
It's a little expensive to move money from my bank account or my credit card or whatever, using any of them, Coinbase, MoonPay, you name it, Stripe. It's expensive. Yeah. Those costs will come down. So you just have to look at it like it's the worst it'll ever be, and we have years to get better.
Yeah. I got a question for you. You had a spicy tweet the other day about MetaDAO. So we had Profit in here. First of all, he doxed. He had the doc. He was great. But your tweet was mainly about the Avicii token. Is that right?
Yeah. So I don't want to go too deep on that, other than to say I was very intentional in my public messaging there.
Yeah.
And it's not a criticism of Avicii's business model itself. It's a criticism of the notion of pre-seed companies that have just launching ownership tokens, basically that brings in stakeholders, that ties the founder and employee compensation purely to token price.
Yeah.
At such early stages when we're investors in similar companies to Avicii, and it's never, growth is never linear. Revenue generation's never perfect and linear. It's very difficult for me to recommend to the earliest stage folks that they should have publicly traded tokens, and they should have these external parties who aren't experienced with long-term horizons making governance decisions for them. And in that tweet, I said, look, like, the capital turnover on Avicii's token is like you're turning over your capital base every single week. No pre-seed firm, I think, should have that. Profit had very good, and the Coliseum guys were wonderful investors and supportive, had some good pushbacks. I'll let them, give their arguments because I still am hesitant, but I think it's a really cool mechanism. What I love about Profit and MetaDAO is that they improve so fast and so relentlessly. Completely different mechanism 6 months ago, and will be much more powerful in 6 months. And I think you'll see things like, I don't know, maybe I'll make a proposal, but like that token price isn't the only KPI that you're measuring growth on. That employees maybe can be compensated in different ways. It's going to be hard to attract employees. And then I'd like to see them select projects that maybe are a little bit more mature. And I know they are working on it. The last thing I'll say is I wanted people to be aware of the incentives of many of the folks who say MetaDAO is the only way to do it, and that every company should have an ownership coin. I was getting sick of it. I was tired of it. I've told these people privately, but you had a lot of these liquid fund managers who have like, just show me the incentives and I'll show you the tweet. But like basically they can't invest in private rounds, so they're going to tell you that the public thing is, it's the best thing, everybody should do it. These are guys who haven't run companies themselves. I have experience doing it. They're giving bad advice to very early stage founders, and I got sick of it. And I think it's really dangerous and destructive, because there's no going back once you do one of these things. So again, I was sort of pushing back on this. There was too loud a voice coming from some of the liquid traders about how this was the be all end all, the solution to everything, to all these other tokens that are governance tokens, or that, don't give you equity rights, which by the way, I don't think like the average random person should get equity rights in a pre-seed business. It's a challenging thing to do. That being said, the platform, the mission, the mechanisms and the leaders and the team of MetaDAO are incredible. And we're making a big long-term bet. And frankly, I bet you we'll be holding that token longer than many of the liquid funds who are their loudest proponents today.
I bet. Yeah. So you've seen a lot more early stage companies. So like, would your advice there be like, hey, like they didn't have like quite the full product yet to be like bringing in that much money?
So I don't even say that. I say more, this is a no turning back decision for you. Once you change your capital stack, such that you have, everything is tied to an ownership token and your treasury, and every holder has a claim on it legally. It's just a big decision. You're early in your business. Do you want to take that risk on top of blockchain risk, on top of business risk, on top of execution risk, and market risk? I would say to many, wait until you have a little bit of a cushion, perhaps, but the counter to that is like Avicii, for example, the sign up spiked dramatically after they did the launch.
Big marketing.
Exactly.
Much, right?
Exactly. Sign up spiked, revenue spiked, and a lot of things did work really well for them. So honestly, and I mean this genuinely, I'd love to be wrong in 12 months and see, the 6 to 8 largest MetaDAO launches of very early stage companies succeed at a rate higher than traditional VC. If that happens, I'll eat my words and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we like MetaDAO too. I mean, it's a cool platform, and they're attacking a good problem. I think, right?
Yeah, unquestionably.
They're
fixing something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
My point is, you can also, like, you could recognize there's problems in the world. This isn't the only solution, but I think it's one of the best experiments in the world at solving this problem.
Yeah, and
they're open to feedback, even it profits a special founder. Like, I think the type of thing that we were saying that's so hard to find, who believes so deeply, and what he's doing, and then can therefore create an army of folks both on his team, investors in his own project. He's an incredible recruiter. I mean, he's a one-on-one.
I think it goes back to what you said as well about just having authentic, original ideas. So that's why they're succeeding so much. Mike, I love having you in here. We could keep ripping on this for an hour, but I can see you're in long sleeves. I don't know how you're doing it.
I don't know why I brought only 3 like VC vests. I like to do it like on stage. I want to look the VC part, but then like, what do I do the other 22 hours?
Look, we'll let you get out back into the first. So thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it.